Hello, welcome to Tony's Bonsai. I think this is going to be a really good video and it's a collaboration with a friend of mine and the package has just arrived. As I'm opening the box, I'm going to explain a little bit about what this collaboration involves. It was basically me and Xavier Martinez, Expressions of Grace Bonsai, and what we've decided to do is send each other a tree, with the idea being that we each get to send off some interesting or difficult material that we weren't sure what to do with, and we let the other person work on it, and I'm going to send mine off to him, and the link will be in the details at the end of this video. But I know he sent me a Japanese larch, but I've no idea what kind of tree it is, what it looks like, and I'm really excited to see what I've got. I don't even really know the orientation of this box, but this seems to be the natural opening along this edge. It seems to be packaged up nicely. I know he's sent a few trees around, Xavier. I'll send those back to him. Whoa, look at that. That looks nice. Beautiful. Look at the lovely branching there, and it's got a nice thick trunk. This looks like a cracker. He did tell me that he was going to wrap the roots in sphagnum moss, so I think it's kind of bare rooted to a certain extent, wrapped in moss, and then I can repot it on this end. Look at that. Oh, he's done a very nice job. And look at this, what do I do with this? There's so many options. I just love this kind of tree. The first thing that I need to do is look at this root base, see what is happening at the bottom. Oh, it looks nice. We've got a nice flare there. Because I've got some interesting roots down here, I think I need to have a proper look. It's a nice bag, a Ziploc bag, but I don't want to risk damaging anything, so I'll just cut that up. And I think that there is potential with this to perhaps do something quite interesting. So it's got a nice flat root base. He's worked on it. He knows what he's doing with these trees, Xavier. So he's got this good flat root base, but it's got all these interesting kind of almost semi-exposed roots. And this is what you get sometimes with when you buy bare root stock. The question then is, what do you do with a tree with that kind of base? I've explained in previous videos how I often turn the camera off and spend a while just looking at the tree. That's exactly what I just did. And it took me about 10 seconds, and instantly I've been inspired. And for me, I want to show these roots. I think they're really interesting. But I think they'll look fantastic like that to one side, adding a real weight to the base of the tree. And these exposed roots over time will kind of thicken up and basically become the bottom of the tree. And I think it works really well at an angle like that. So my next job is to decide what I'm doing with the trunk and then get it into a pot. Because I'm going to try to add some movement to this trunk. It is quite thick, but larch are quite flexible. And I'm really glad that I did the work a few days ago on some Japanese larch that I bought as bare root stock, because it's given me a feel of what I can get away with and how far I can push this tree. And that's really important knowledge for me to have. To give me extra protection, I'm wrapping my vet tape around the trunk. I'm doing a very, very tight coil of it. We've got a large chop there Hopefully that'll heal up over time. Larch do heal up really well, so I'm sure that'll be fine. And this vet tape, when you put it on really tightly like this, it doesn't half offer some protection. Now, I've yet to snap a tree that I've done this with. Now, some people might say that's tempting fate, but that's just the way it is. And what this tape will also do, as well as protecting the tree from snapping under tension, it'll also hopefully protect the bark from marking when I apply the wire, and then tie it just with a simple knot, and that just holds it on. It's a lot quicker than using raffia. I know Xavier's been experimenting with raffia on some of his larch and he's had really good success. There, so that's stage one done. Because this is a special tree, I'm going to use some fresh wire. And this is 6mm wire. Nice and strong. And I'll just use my usual technique, which is leaving an overhang like that, and then just working my way up the trunk. It's so much easier using brand new wire like this. There's no excuse for not basically creating a perfect this is perfectly tight all the way up. There's no gaps, there's nothing. And that there has provided a lovely tight grip. Excellent. I've got a piece of wire about the same length, and this is 4.5mm, and I'll just be wrapping this using the exact same technique, but this will go right in the middle of the thicker wire. And it will add some assistance in the bending, but the main purpose of this is to support the actual trunk and the bark so that it doesn't split. Yeah, so that was quite quick. It doesn't take long. Once you get used to wiring like this, it doesn't take long at all. Now I need to decide where I want to put the bend and the movement. I've lowered the camera so that we can see where this will hopefully look kind of at the edge of the pot. And I see this as the exposed bit of root there. And I think if it sits kind of at that height, obviously the natural direction that I want to move this is that way. Trying to be very careful. It's quite tricky. There we go. Right, I've got a bit of movement in that there. I like that. It's quite low, and that's where I want it, so I'll just try and go a bit further with that. There we go. That'll do. I'm not taking that any more than that. I've got away with it. So we've got a nice turn up, and that gives me the opportunity now to just take the top back round.
I might be just a little bit disappointed actually. I thought you were going to go a little bit more radical with that.
This should be a bit easier to bend, although it's still thick. And I don't want to straighten this bottom bit. So it is going to be quite hard to bend, but I'll try. And I'm just really pushing on the inside of my hand there. Pushing with this finger and pivoting it on there. There we go, go on. Go on. There. Right. It's quite subtle, but I like that movement. I think that works well. I like the way this does come across, then straightens up. Again, and this often happens when I do this kind of work, is that this initial bend, I have to re-bend afterwards. So I'll get this top one finished. Right, that top bend's finished now. And it comes slightly towards the camera, which is great. I'm really liking it. I would just like to add a little bit more back into that bottom bend because it's just straightened up a touch. There we go.
I had some plans for raffia, but I didn't see that much of a bend happening. You really are the bendy master. Bendy master, bendy master, bendy master.
That's back. I'm really liking that. So it's got a bit of a twist to it. It's got some character. And I now need to get this in a pot. I've got a couple of options of pots. I'm going to start with this unglazed terracotta type pot. I could definitely fit that in there. Oh, it's not deep enough. It's just not deep enough, that. No, that's no good. Oh, that's perfect. That's a really nice height for this tree. And I think it's quite squat and compact. A bit like, you know, in some ways like the tree with that base. I think that'll work really well. So I'm going to pot it into this. That didn't take long. To give this tree an extra helping hand, I've got some of the sphagnum moss in a bucket here. And all I'm going to do is just tear that up into bits. So get it quite fine. I think I could even just chop it like that. Just to break it down a bit. And then this is going to go in with my bonsai soil. Just to really supercharge the health of the tree. You'll have to excuse the slightly industrial looking bucket. But it does the job though. So I put some bonsai soil in there and I'm now just mixing that moss in with the soil. And I think the tree will really enjoy being in that. And if there's any bigger lumps of moss, now's the time to just sort of break them up with your fingers and take out any big pieces of bark. And that's great. I've prepared the pot with some tape in the bottom to hold the soil in and a couple of pieces of wire coming out so that I'll be able to support the tree. And I'll just start off by putting a good handful of my soil on the base there. I'll then take the tree. I'm not cutting any roots off. The tree just goes in the pot, and ideally I'd like it over this side because obviously the tree's leaning this way, but then because it does lean back, it's not that big a deal, but I don't want it looking like that. I will cut just a few of those very longest roots off. There we go. And then if I can get this into the pot about there, that looks good. I'll spread the roots out so the roots are kind of coming back around, filling this area of the pot. I think that's looking good. I get my bonsai soil in and around these roots. I don't want this to become a big long repotting video, so I might speed a lot of this up. Using my chopstick, I just work this soil down into the roots now, making sure there's no air pockets. We all know what this is about, so I'll come back to you when this is done. That soil's all been nicely chopsticked in. I can just take my wires and just secure the tree in place. I can just add a final bit of my bonsai soil on the top, and hopefully now from that view there and level with kind of the edge of the pot, we should just begin to get an idea of what that root base is going to look like exposed above the surface like that. And I think it looks really good. Before I move on to pruning and styling that larch, which is going to be really interesting, I just wanted to quickly give you a look at the trees that I'm sending Xavier in return for him sending me that larch. I looked around my garden and I didn't really have anything of an equal kind of standard to that. So I thought I'd send him a couple of interesting trees. I want to send him this. This is a Nothophagus, a southern beech. See what he can do with that. This is one of my many junipers that I've got. It's a really quite a challenging one in many ways, but it'll give him lots of opportunity to have a go at really maybe doing some interesting bending, because he's not really a fan of junipers, so that should be interesting. And this one is a Japanese holly, Ilex crenata, and I've been looking at this for months and months and months, and I'm just like, what would I do with it? It's a bit of a headache really, so I'll be interested to see what Xavier does with all three of these trees. And at the end of Xavier's video, you'll be able to see me talking about each of these trees and saying what I personally would have done with them after you've seen whatever he does with them. I don't know. So I'm going to bare root these, get them boxed up and send them off to Xav. Now to get back to that larch. Up at the top of the tree, we've got a really nice leader coming up here, but we've got a bit of potential inverse taper happening here. There's too many branches all coming from this one point, and this is quite a stubby, kind of thick branch for something that's so high in the tree. The only problem is it is coming from a good place. It's on the outside of this bend, potentially, but the fact that it's in a good place doesn't change the fact that it potentially can sort of spoil the tree. So I'm going to get rid of that one. That's got to go. I like this branch here. We've got a few small stubby bits coming out too low, and this top section here can be removed, I think, but I'll leave that for the time being. That can always come off at another time, so I'll probably carve that section down like that. I just want to make sure that that's nicely cut back. When I come round to the back, we've got a couple of branches coming from the same point, and it's here. So we've got a nice thin flexible branch and a thicker one above it, and this is an example where I will choose the new fresher young growth and get rid of that old one above it. This will be much easier for me to style and move. And I'll just take the top off it there. That's lovely. So we've got lots of good branches in good positions. If I'm keeping this one, and we've got a nice branch coming here that I like, it might be a bit much having this one here as well. So that one can go. But apart from that, I'm sort of liking everything really. We've got a bit of a stubby thing here, but it's got a bud on it, and I'll leave that. That might end up handy in the future. But the rest of it, I think can now sort of be wired. Maybe just this here. See, we've got a nice branch there. We've got some good ramification developing on that. So I'm going to cut this bottom one off. I don't want that going too thick anyway, this branch, so I wanted to hold that back. Yeah, I think that's looking good. This branch is in a strong position. It's on the outside of this bend, so we've sort of got quite a gap. Yeah, I like this, but I don't want it to get too congested and clumpy. So I'm going to remove those lower branches on it there. And these are going, I can't keep both of these. And so this one has to be removed. Because if I don't deal with this, again, I'm going to be facing inverse taper around this area. And I just don't want to have to deal with that. So I'd rather just cut it off.
So go on then, Tony, surprise me. What's going on in that madcap brain of yours?
Well, I think that went really well. I'm very happy with the styling of this tree now. I think it looks good from all angles. It's got some good movement in it. And you might have noticed the top of the tree. This is the highest branch that I bent down. Above here, I do have lots of lovely small branches in a perfect position. They're too small to wire, but eventually these will be wired in a downward slope. But these at the top, there's no point wiring those because that's going to be cut off eventually. Nothing above here is going to be in the final composition, so I may as well just leave those to grow healthily. I believe cut paste isn't really all that necessary on larch because they've got very good sort of healing capabilities. Well, I always put a bit on anyway, just as a bit of a belt and braces.
Well, I've got to say, Tony, I'm pretty impressed with that. But do you want to know what my intention was? Because I'm sure that really interests you. This is still quite flexible, as you probably know by now. I was literally going to put some raffia on this, put a little bit more movement there and here, spin it around a little bit more, then remove this central one here and just regrow basically downwards on all these. There was one other option I did have, and I wouldn't know the answer to that until I checked the actual roots in there, but that was to actually, so cut there, and either have that one or grow this one as the new leader and just take that whole top way. That would have depended on what I found when I did the roots. So it was either do radical and remove all of that, would have either been that way up or that way up. But hey, I like what you've definitely done with it, so I think it's a win-win. Hopefully you'll get to enjoy that tree, and perhaps we'll see what it looks like in another year or two. But thanks for the effort on that, Tony. Really appreciate that. It looks really good, and it saved me just one job this spring. So cheers, Tony.
Well, that was great fun. I've got a really nice tree out of it, and I can't wait to see how that develops in the future. Obviously, if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe and follow my adventures in bonsai. And if you're one of my regular viewers, here's a link to Xav's part of the collaboration. Click on this one and it'll take you to his video and you can see what he did on the other side, and give him a subscribe, help him along, and It's all good. As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day and I'll see you soon.